Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show 69, and today's topic is Guild Alliances. I'm joined by Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
And we have Lexa with us, and we're getting a bit of feedback from someone here. And we have obviously Fogzor with us, who will be answering your questions later on down the line when we get to the show. Can you guys hear that feedback coming through?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't know where the hell that's coming from. Hang on. Turn that off. Turn that off. And hopefully now...
Just a quick side note, people. Your hell is having some major PC snafus, so please bear with us.
So we've got Fogzer with us who will be answering, looking out for your questions. And when we get to that segment, we'll try and go through them as we normally do. And we have Zathris as well, to answer any general questions you might have in chat. And then before we kick off this show on mechanics and guild alliances, I wanted to bring up one quick note, because I've been searching for this for about 2 weeks now. And where the hell is this feedback coming from? This is really annoying. Basically, I remember back in, it was sometime last year, late last year, that VR kind of went into the whole guild situation, and I've got a link here which I'll put into chat. Can you do me a favour, Josh? Can you mute your microphone?
Sure.
I think it might be your microphone or something like that. It's not your microphone. Somewhere there's background noise coming. So anyway, that's the link to to what I want to talk about. And this was actually on the newsletter, one of the newsletters from October, where they had the VIP community be able to ask questions to VR. And this was brought up from Drac436. Will guilds be able to form alliances for social functions like alliance chat for coordination? And Chris Perkins, Jopper, answered, as a challenging, group-centric and socially driven game, guilds will play a massively iconic role in our player culture and gameplay experience. As such, we will work hard to ensure guilds have robust tools and functionality to form, expand, communicate and cooperate. Now this is the interesting part. Guild alliances and guild warfare will be realities, and we will have the social tools in place to make these two facets of our guild system enjoyable. And this is what we're going to talk about today. We also put a tweet out asking about the guild alliances, if people would be interested in this, and there was a mix basically of the majority going towards it, they weren't really bothered about it, and the majority saying in PvP definitely. When it comes to PvE though, there were mixed responses. Anyway, looking at this now from what Chris Perkins said, obviously this is subject to change, it's not set in stone. But from this perspective, looking at it from a PvP perspective, I can see this working brilliantly, and if it's done right, they could create some awesome game mechanics with this. Now, how could a guild alliance system on a PvE server work from the functions? Especially when you look at the wording of guild warfare as well. Is that even possible? Is that something that we would even like to pursue? And how could it be done where it doesn't kind of mix with the PvP aspects of a game?
Questions?
Well, from a PvE standpoint, the alliance systems, there's a lot you can do there, because you could technically raid 2 areas simultaneously with an alliance or more. You could use that as a method to unlock things, In terms of the warfare on a PvE server, unless they have some kind of like territory system, I don't see how it's going to really work. I mean, but maybe they're just talking about guild warfare for the PvP servers. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of context in what they said.
Like, it's really hard to read, but the the general basis is there. Guild alliances and guild warfare will be realities. If that stance is still relative and concrete towards that aspect, we do not know. But it's definitely interesting, and we'll get into the PvP aspect a bit later. We'll try and view this now from a perspective of PvE. Now, how could this work? How, from the guild alliance aspect only, what kind of functions would you guys like to see? We all know that in MMOs, since MMOs have been around, people have formed alliances. Be it, having a chat that they use together and whatnot. But looking at going a bit deeper, what are the functions? What could they bring in to the guild window for the guilds to actually utilize a fully functioning guild alliance system? What could they add to it that would make it more enjoyable, more immersive?
Well, one thing I thought about this morning is the system of flags which give guilds bonuses. And if you form an alliance with another guild, you would have access to their bonus flag as well. Therefore, you can add different bonuses. So maybe you are a guild that is raid focused and you had a raid banner, gave you X percentage to whatever stat, and you formed an alliance with maybe a crafter guild, you'd get additional bonuses through their flag. Helped your guild in the long run.
To expand on that idea, let's just assume a few things here for a second. Let's assume you can build a guild hall. Let's assume that the guild hall can give you some benefits like buffs, okay? So, again, let's assume that those buffs, you can only have one on at a time, okay? Alliance with another guild could potentially spread that buff to your allies. So if there's 10 different buffs and you have an alliance of 10 guilds, you could technically have all the buffs on. I mean, that's one way to do it. Looking back at my old EverQuest career, near the end I started doing public raids. I don't know if many people are familiar with that. That primarily came out of like 2 or 3 guilds, and that was basically considered an alliance raid, because all these guilds were in alliance and in agreement of how many people should go and all this other stuff. And basically, the whole thing got its own chat channel on EverQuest. And that's kind of how I'm seeing guild alliances working in PvP in a way. And I accept the fact that this could be a very narrow outlook on it. But you might just get an alliance chat channel, and it might just be a greater workforce that you can pull from for grouping or for other events or for raiding, so that a guild that isn't necessarily a raiding guild does have raiding options.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about the guild alliance system in multiple shows now. We brought up some ideas towards this, what we would definitely like to see, especially when it comes to us. We're looking at it from our perspective with the guild, not having a over chunky, overloaded guild full of twinks. We would like to form a secondary guild where we have our twinks inside, but also have the option to be able to connect to that guild and its guild UI system. And another thing that I would kind of find cool is to be able to have like guild diplomats that are not technically in one's guild, but they can be assigned as a diplomat, and they basically have or they will be listed in our guild register because they are obviously a diplomat. Go on.
With that idea, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're basically saying like you have a guild, I have a guild.
Mm-hmm.
I set Joshu as my diplomat for your guild, and he has access to your guild chat and my guild chat,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, something
But
like that.
technically, if you had an alliance chat, wouldn't that almost defeat that? And technically, an almost chat channel for the alliance would be simpler.
Would be simpler, yeah. But I'm looking at this more of the, from the immersive perspective, like limiting access and even having outsiders be diplomats that basically can go out and speak on behalf of the guild. So you don't technically have to be in our guild. You're a diplomat who can communicate. Because maybe some guilds want to have some kind of alliance or kind of connect somehow with each other, but they don't want to be aligned in full force. They only want to be like a media person that basically goes out and spreads and talks about maybe your guild, to new people or whatever. Some kind of system like that.
I see where you're coming from. I see a lot of work on the back end also for VR. So I'm naturally going to gravitate towards a simpler, good enough option. But that's just the developer in me, where I'm thinking you could just have a guild member do that, and two guilds could share the chat. If someone's like, where you run into the mucky waters or the muddy waters is, say you have one person who's technically the only person in the guild that's interested in doing anything with your guild. Okay. This other guy's guild, he wants really nothing to do with you. Maybe they're maxed on their alliances. Will there be a way for that one person to communicate with the guild on a group level? I don't really think so. I'm not even really sure how you would possibly do that besides basically saying that even though this person's in this guild, he has access to this guild channel. But that can make a lot of complexity behind the scenes that really shouldn't be there. Nice feature, yes. Worth the trouble? Probably not. Hard to say.
To look at what Josh said as well, because there's a question about why would you even need guild alliances, especially in PvE, etc. Looking at this perspective from what Josh said and what Lexa said as well, if you have a crafters guild that are fully focused on crafting, then you have a smaller miner guild, and then you have this major raiding guild. If those three form an alliance, all three could benefit without having to switch or leave or destroy their guild to go to the raiding guild that has everything unlocked, or go to the crafting guild that has everything on crafting unlocked. So as soon as you kind of form an alliance, they might have features unlocked within their guild or through their crafters that give benefits to them that we don't technically have because we haven't met certain requirements. We haven't got enough crafters in our guild, or our crafters aren't high enough. But as soon as you form these alliances, you get the same access or accessibility to what these other guilds have to offer.
Right.
There could also be geographical alliances as well. In the sense that if their guild is formed in one of the other major cities, you could have access to certain materials that city has, or recipes that city has. And vice versa, you could swap these type of things between the guilds once you have that alliance.
Almost like an economic treaty in a way.
Correct.
I mean, that would add a lot of layers to the game that would keep me busy for a very long time, because sometimes I get in moods where I just love crunching the numbers. But I'd have a hard time seeing that in Pantheon, and I don't know if it's because VR is primarily a lot of very old school style gamers, or if it's because I don't see VR as being large enough to put the manpower behind a system like that. I don't know. I'm not trying to get down on people's ideas. I'm really not today. I'm really not, because they are fantastic ideas. I
There's
see a
lots
lot
more
of
to
work.
focus on first, basically.
Yeah. Focus on the core first, and I think to be blatantly honest, we're not going to see anything more than our guild has an official alliance. We get a new channel. I honestly don't think we're going to see more of that. Would I like to see alliances be a part of unlocking perhaps some additional benefit for your guild? Absolutely. Would I love to see a buff system that maybe alliances can share buffs across the guilds? Oh, yeah. I'd love to see the crafter thing too.
Well, you know, in all fairness, though, the way Chris phrased this, as such, we will work hard to ensure guilds have robust tools and functionality to form, expand, communicate, and cooperate.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be a little more than just having a chat window where you have a kind of alliance. Because that's the other thing. I would love to have where, because not everybody's going to be or in that chat all the time. Now, with an alliance system, if I can have a full overview of their roster, see who's online, etc., communicate with everybody, because not everybody joins those individual chats that are made up, and when people log out, they're not available anymore. So having a alliance system where guild A and B and maybe C get together, you know, we shake hands, we cut, you know, we slice blood, you know, squeeze blood and everything. We now got a bond. We've now formed an alliance, and having accessibility with limitations, obviously, because there's obviously stuff that does not concern us or concern them and so forth. But being able to actually see their full roster and maybe all their characters, etc., and be able to communicate maybe with individual people. Now, that goes a longer way, because sometimes people do miss out. Not everybody's going to know about this chat alliance going on, or that there's this chat that's been opened up for people that want to raid, and not everybody knows about it. But having these alliances where you kind of intertwine all these functions, and that's why I said having diplomats, where you basically have people that don't technically belong to the guild. They have a full access to your guild. Obviously, you can lock them out of officer chats, lock them out of leadership chats and stuff like that. So you can basically define what kind of access you want to give them, and they could take over different roles as well.
Now, VR has said that they do want to add stuff like calendars and all that other great stuff. They have mentioned it. What if a guild alliance simply just merges things like our calendars, our chats, stuff like that? I mean, you still have all your administrative stuff, you know, but members can see who's online, and it counts for everybody in the alliance. It's kind of like once you join an alliance, all of your guild UI becomes an alliance UI, where you can filter by guild. Like, you can just say my guild only, but default it shows everyone in the alliance. And the same thing with calendar, would show all the events for the entire alliance, where if they do have a sign-up system on the calendar, you could potentially sign up to the other guild in the alliance's event.
Because that's another thing you could do exactly on those aspects as well. You have your guild diplomats. They have full access to enter group setups, raid setups, etc. This calendar goes global within this alliance that is formed. I see the calendar with my guild, Josh sees the calendar with his guild, you see the calendar with your guild. Now you're planning to go and do a dungeon run. Now you put that into the calendar, we all see it, you know, we get people involved from our three guilds. Then Josh starts to plan a raid, makes it a alliance-wide announcement. Boom! Now we can put people into our. The diplomats have the functionality to add people to those calendar dates and so forth and so forth. That's where I kind of see a guild alliance system making a lot of sense, and offering a variety of in-depth options within the game without having to go to third-party websites, other guild websites, this, that and the other. We've got this alliance system formed. You've got access to calendars. You can have diplomats that basically are allowed to post. And another way I'm looking at diplomats as well for what we do with the Voice of the Terminus, I would love to have diplomats from all the guilds inside our guild that feed us information on events that are happening around Terminus. So, you know, we've got a diplomat from one raid guild, they go in and they conquer the first raid boss ever. Now he can give us that information on the fly, let us know that, hey, we conquered this dude. That's where I see me using diplomats for. Getting all the information for us to carry on doing our shows after we have finished and talking about, you know, all the events within Terminus, everything that's happened in Terminus. We have these individual people spread out through the world that are diplomats per se, helping us gather information that we would acquire to, you know, do our news shows and tell everybody about these amazing events that happened, that maybe the TDC went and conquered such and such a raid mob, and the OTG went and achieved this, and so achieved this, and and this small guild, their main player, he achieved his epic quest. That's another function you could bring into it as well. And for the guide system, I see endless possibilities for the guide system as well, using diplomats as and having certain diplomats be guides as well opens up a new perspective towards the alliance system and even gives them more functionality, because hey, I'm a diplomat, I'm a guide, I've joined such and such a guild that has an alliance system, I'm now connected to this network of guilds, and I can now spread out more of my guideness.
My guide juiciness.
Yep.
I mean, if there was unlimited amount of people that could be in alliance, yeah, that could be definitely used as a guide networking tool, for sure. I strongly see limitations on how many guilds can be in an alliance, simply because on PvP servers you could get that one guild that's just so, or that one alliance that's so gigantically huge that there's no point in being with anybody else, at which point it kind of topples the whole purpose of the server. You get that whole goon squad thing going on, like from EVE Online.
Would you put a limit on straight away, or as my wife and I discussed this morning, that you can have unlimited guild alliances, but you have a guild tax. The more alliances you have, the higher your tax is going to go, where it's going to become imaginably high, where you cannot afford to that type of thing going.
As long as there is some limiting factor, like in your example, money and cash flow is the limiting problem here. I mean, eventually when you're dishing out so much money every whatever cycle they choose because your alliance is so big, you're going to sit there and go, I think we need to cut this down. You know, because eventually something's going to give. So either a hard, flat-out number or something like the cash sink, something to just make it a limitation.
You could limit it based on members' numbers as well. You could say, you know, a maximum of 250 individuals within the alliance system. So if you've got a guild with 50 members, you've got a guild with 100 members, you've got a guild with 20 members, a guild with 30, you could do it that way. And that's one way of doing it. Or going down the hard route and saying, right, a maximum of 3 guilds can be formed to have an alliance. A maximum of 3 guilds can be formed to have warfare going on. So let's go and have a look at this from the PvP perspective, to maybe jot our craziness and thoughts and ideas on the PvP aspect. Now I can see this guild alliance and guild warfare being amazing for PvP. Now I saw it mentioned in chat as well about the diplomats and PvP and them being spies. That's the risk. That's the risk you're gonna have. It happened everywhere. In our medieval times there were diplomats, and even now we have diplomats that are diplomats, but hey, it turns out they're gathering intelligence. That's the risk you have, and that's what I kind of see. That's why I kind of see the immersion coming in, and that's how you start, guild warfare, because diplomat or said diplomat is actually being.
All of a sudden you're a double agent.
He's a double agent, and now you're going to have war or declare war on this guild.
In a PvP context, things like having the ability to have a spy really does a lot to the PvP aspect. I mean, EVE Online has been around for what, almost 2 decades now?
Yeah.
And their PvP is very intense, and I don't know if anyone's really followed a lot of the stuff that's going on in that server, but there were 2 gigantic corporations, which are basically guilds, and they had spies like in every small guild, just everywhere there was a spy from one or the other or both. And I mean, it got to the point where if you're running a guild and it's getting pretty big, you honestly will wake up the next morning going, I wonder if this guild's gonna survive another day, which is good from the people that like the adrenaline rush, but it's bad for people that just are like, much drama. But it's gonna be one of those things where it has potential, but it's gonna have to be approached gently.
I mean, having guild alliances and guild warfare on PvP, you could, add what you guys mentioned at the beginning, having regions be kind of managed through certain guilds. So let's say, for instance, now you've got 3 guilds that have formed an alliance in Avendir's Pass, as an example, and they've basically fenced off everybody else. They've got this thing locked down. They could have like kind of a control over Avendir's Pass and kind of add taxation towards the NPC vendors and stuff like that, additional taxation where they would profit from. Now, obviously, that would definitely take a lot of work to do, because looking at the aspect of warfare as well, you still want to have that balance to some point, and kind of rule sets on how would you allow this alliance that have basically taken over Avendir's Pass have their fair share of time before they can be overrun by other guilds coming into the system and somewhat. Terra had this kind of system already in play, where they had guilds actually run individual zones for however long they were voted in by the players. You had your hierarchs or whatever they were called that would run certain regions. They could turn off certain NPC vendors, like the special vendors. They could raise the prices. They could initially, the plan was to be able to change the spawn timers, for instance. So in a region where there's less and less going on, they would basically reduce the spawn timers so that it's not overpopulated all the time. People just run through, and then where basically there's a lot going on, they could raise the spawn timers so people get a decent amount of XP, don't get shut down and have to wait and fight and battle. There's so much they could do with the guild alliance and warfare system when it comes to PvP. They'd obviously have to think this through on what kind of rule sets they want to put forth, what could create or what would be required to form alliances, what would be required to declare war on a guild, and how far they want this to basically go when it comes to guild warfare. Will you have battlefields where you meet up and fight, or can they actually go to your stronghold and start beating down stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know that Pantheon is primarily focused on PvE at this time. We know they do want to do PvP, but it is a secondary concern at this point. Mm-hmm. I'm very particular about my PvP, because if I don't like it, then I'm nothing but salty my entire experience. So, I can safely say if they make PvP almost feel like a different game, because we know with a lot of the different mechanics, different formulas for combat between PvE and PvP, you can't really do the same things, right? If they make it feel like a different game, like instead of running out doing dungeons and stuff, you're actually running in a opposing guild's territory, taking something from them. It could just be something that's completely cosmetic and say it's just supplies from a camp, instead of farming mobs, and just make it feel like a whole new game. I will absolutely roll a character on a PvP server.
I mean, coming back now to the PvE aspect as well, while we're talking about all this and thinking of things to do, if we look at other mechanics that could intertwine to make a guild alliance system in PvP make sense, like the perception system, like the fact that we have evil characters and we have good characters, faction for instance, we take those three aspects into account with a guild alliance system on a PvE server, it makes pretty damn good sense, because you could, let's say for instance now, technically you can only form guild alliances with other good guilds if you're on the good side. Now, no, why not go and say, right, you want to basically be able to accommodate the good, the bad, you can only form an alliance to have access to both systems when it comes to maybe faction unlocking. So you get certain advantages with faction because you formed an alliance with a technically evil guild. Where we are a good guild, you've got an evil guild, now you've got a few more options when it comes to the faction. Maybe the perception system comes into play as well. Now technically, normally, we're locked for certain aspects of the perception. If you add like a faction system within the guild system itself, not just on your player actions but on your guild actions as well, you add faction, or not necessarily faction, but some kind of system where you're rated on your general guild actions, how you generally perceive yourself within the game. So if we start going down and beating down innocent little rabbits, our little conscience starts drifting away to the dark side, whereas the other guild starts, protecting the little rabbits and wildlife, and now their conscience starts going towards the good side. Things like that could come into play. Taxation, like Josh said as well. Taxing. Having benefits by forming alliances. With crafting guilds, you get a lower tax. With the crafting association, because we're technically not a crafting guild, but because we've aligned ourselves with a crafting guild, we have a lower tax rate when we go and purchase goods. Maybe we get access to quests that weren't available to us because we don't have crafters in the guild, so now we can start taking part in these crafting activities that weren't available to us. So we do protection runs for caravans and help the crafters transport their goods from A to B, along the route, or the route basically from Throne Fast to Wild's End. So you can add certain mechanics to it to make it more believable and give it more immersion, more sense. And another reason why I would love to have this Guild Alliance system is for the fact I get OCD when it comes to tidiness inside a guild, and if I see that we have like 30 people in the guild but we've got like 150 characters in the guild, I lose my mind. I do. I just go crazy. My OCD kicks in. Boom. Second guild, all the twinks in there, have an alliance system where I can see who's online, when and where from the get-go and communicate with them. That's why I would love to have an alliance system. So I can keep track of what's going on with the twinks or the alts. And let's say, for instance, now Josh is on with his alt. We plan to go and do something with our main characters. Now, I might have forgotten what his 27,000 alt character's name is. Or might not have them all in the friends list, because I'm sorry, I'm not going to add everybody's alts into my friends list. It's just insane. But if I have this alliance system, I can say, hey Josh, guess what? You're online with Joshua X. I communicate with Joshua X and let Joshua X know that we're going to go into Black Dagger Keep and, you know, finish off this quest line that we were working on. Do you want to come along? I want to be able to at least communicate with people that are alts or using their alts because they're taking a break from the mainstream game, or they just, you know, logged in to chill out. They haven't got that much time. I want to be able to communicate with them outside of my main guild, technically. That's another reason why I would love to have an alliance system like this, rather than having a Windows setup.
I've been holding on to just one idea that you had, the whole conscience meter thing. That if we're a good guild and someone starts doing bad things, the conscience meter goes down. I'm sitting there going, I'm getting kicked out of VOT and fast.
That's the challenge, though. Imagine this. Let's say, for instance, now they have guild quests. They add guild quests to the game. And not just your normal go and kill 10 of these and you get some points and everything, but actual storylines for guilds to actually go out and do. Now, let's say the majority of the guild, or you know, all guilds start off neutral with their conscience is neutral. The guild conscience is neutral. Now your guilds start forming up. And people start going and do their things. You got the Dire Lords and the Darkmere and the Ogres doing all the evil stuff. You got the good people doing all the nice stuff. Now you can start seeing a drift from this conscience going up and down, you know, towards evil, towards good. A bit like Fable, good boy, bad boy. Now, with having guild quests put into the game that require the guild as a collective to actually work hard. Additionally, to shift their alignment or shift their conscience to unlock a certain quest or achieve a certain faction that is required for this guild quest, kind of adds a bit of fun towards the whole socialization aspect, because people will start working together in guilds to try and unlock certain different things. And you know, you can shift from good to evil. It doesn't necessarily always have to be that you have to be on the good side of your conscience or the bad side of your conscience. It's just another fun mechanic to add to the socialization aspect of the game, the immersion of the game, by adding certain stipulations that kind of require guilds to actually look out for what they are actually doing, because we might want to unlock a certain achievement that requires us to have a good conscience, but because we're so far drifted, we've now got to do that extra bit of mileage to shift our conscience back into that direction. It's another challenge for us as guilds to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if that alignment system would be a bad thing for alliances, though, because what if, you know, you're good friends with someone who's running a guild and you want to be in an alliance with them for just raiding purposes, and all of a sudden it's like our alliance alignment is really, really good so far because we've got 3 good guilds and all of a sudden he's a bad one. He starts dragging us down, all of a sudden everyone's got a reason to be negative towards that one guild, and it's like, get out, go, shoot.
Well, there's your warfare then, ain't it? There's your guild warfare.
Internal warfare equals drama.
There's your warfare for you. I mean, you don't have to technically align it to. It's definitely something that would, you know, require a lot of thought. And you know, how would you do this? How could you do it? I mean, I'm not saying that if one person's being bad, that the guild's going to suffer. It's going to require a good balance. You know, let's say we've got 50 people in the guild, 25 are doing good things, 25 are doing bad things. Boom, we're going to be smack in the middle. But if all 50 start doing bad things, it's going to start drifting towards the bad. If all 50 start doing good things, it's going to drift towards the good. So you can basically shift, and this is where your diplomats, your communication skills come in. Maybe they can add a guild alliance unlockable system that we can all unlock together.
If the alignment system was primarily cosmetic or just, you know, bluff, then yeah. But because I can see my character being a Scar Dialord wanting to be evil, and all of a sudden being stuck around a whole bunch of goody two-shoes that are affecting my gameplay and going, that's it, I'm out. Feel dirty, and not in a good way.
I also think that guild alliances, in terms of needing more than one guild to take down certain mobs, I wonder if they'll bring that aspect back into it.
I would absolutely love if they had coordinated raiding. Like,
Yeah.
say there's a mage tower on this side of the world, there's a mage tower on this side of the world, both have a raid. But what they don't tell you is that if you kill them both in a certain time span, we'll say 4 hours, you know, if you can kill them both in 4 hours, all of a sudden this big rift opens up in the middle and a whole new raid. That's open world.
That you have to come together within a certain time and take it on.
Yep.
You make it so that it's like that time period between the kills is just short enough to where you couldn't go from one to the other.
Yeah.
But you need an alliance. And then you say, we're going to raid this one at this time. You guys try to raid this at that time or close to it. And then we'll meet up here in the middle. And all of a sudden, you know, you got yourself a huge event that starts off with merely your alliance and then ends with possibly, it could be an open world raid. Everyone on the server's participating. It's chaotic. Things are going crazy. Oh my god!
Halflings are being tossed.
I just want to quickly go and address this in chat from an Aiden. But what if a friend is good and wants to join the guild and it's evil? Well, because you formed an alliance with a good and an evil guild, he can go and do that. But we already know that there's not going to be any restrictions, as far as I remember VR saying. There's not going to be restrictions based on your alignment for joining a guild. So technically all guilds are going to be neutral, whatever. There's going to be no pure evil guilds, pure good guilds, neutral guilds. Anybody can join your guild. This so-called conscience system is just based on the guild's general actions. That's what I'm getting at. Now you can have a good mix of people that are, you know, going to do bad stuff, good stuff, and whatnot. And this is where it comes in to the whole aspect of getting your guild together and saying, right guys, we're trying to unlock this system here right now, but we are currently, our conscience is currently saying we're here right now. Now we need to shift this over here. It gets us all working together, regardless of our alignment. So the good guys have to start doing bad stuff maybe. Start sneaking into, throwing fast and breaking into people's houses and stealing stuff.
Sorry.
Lexo is common denominator here.
Well, because you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be like,
Evil
okay,
spanner.
we're trying to get good conscience. Quick, everyone go hug a halfling. And I'm sitting there going, no!
Okay, Lex has gone to bed. Everybody work on the good side quickly.
2 hours later, you see that I've gone around killing every halfling I can find and chasing a few players around too, just for spite.
I mean, adding all those fluff features that we talked about and quality of life features like, you know, the usage of calendars, planners and stuff like that. That's where I can see a system like this working. Maybe for the PvE, the word Guild Alliance might not be the right wording. Maybe it has to be something different, not necessarily a Guild Alliance.
I'll say I just kind of jumped into my Lord of the Rings
Fellowship.
playtime. Was like Fellowship. Like, wait a minute, that's not stolen from anything at all. No, I mean, there's going to be some fluff features that are just for fun. I mean, what if we had a conscious system? What if I was the only bad guy and everyone else was overwhelmingly Halo polish and tree hugging hippies? Well, then I'm the only Dire Lord Scar running around with a halo over his head. And I'm sitting there going, well, son of a...
Because, I mean, if you think about it, these are challenges that you go by every day. You might not agree with what your boss says, but you do it anyway, because that's your job. So having alliances where they might have to overcome their inner evil child and do some good things by giving people flowers. Lex, I'm looking at you.
I resemble that remark.
You know, that's part of the experience.
Yeah.
No,
But I can't help but think of Star Wars: The Old Republic with their alignment system for characters, where it honestly meant little to nothing. It was more just how your character looked, you know. And I mean, I was cool with that. So I'd be cool if the alignment system was just about appearances. Maybe if you're all evil, you can activate some cosmetic shadowy aura around your character, or not. And on the flip side, maybe if everyone's overwhelmingly good within the alliance, you know, you get this crazy little flowing white aura around you. Oh, you know, but you have the option to turn it off. I mean, I'm fine if there was something like that. It's just I don't want anything to affect. I don't want anything to taint me.
yeah, it should be. You know, most of this
My
stuff.
good reputation.
Most of the stuff that they do, if they ever did anything like that, this isn't obviously pure speculation, and we're just rolling with ideas here. It's definitely going to have to mainly be fluff. If they're going to reward guilds for systems like this, then it has to be for the guild itself, and not for an alliance system.
Right.
That's where you can put rewards in. But you know, adding fluff items.
Alliance-wise.
Yep, fluff can be alliance-wise.
Because when you're affecting gameplay of a larger amount of people, you obviously run into more people that are going to be adversely affected, or even just possibly, which is something you try to avoid. So doing something where it's like all of a sudden now everybody's evil and every good character wants to eat your guts, doing that to an alliance would be very, very bad.
Well, let's go and try and go back onto the PvP aspect and try and think a bit more on what could make this system great for PvP. Where do you see the benefits for a in-depth system where you have actual guild alliances forming, not just your chat windows, but a lot more of some of the features that we talked about, being a part of the PvP game, for guild alliances and guild warfare? Where do you see the benefits that PvPers will reap from?
Well, I'll kick off here and just say that you're going to assume that in PvP, taking down your guild hall or city or that type of thing, so you'd have to build certain machinery, maybe catapults, maybe certain siege engines to take down walls, etc. And if you're in a guild alliance, it will allow you maybe to have access to harvestables to build the stuff, as well as maybe to halve the times to actually build
Josh,
the actual
give us
item.
a quick second. The feedback's coming from you, Lex. There we go. Just sorting TeamSpeak. We found the problem. It was Lex. So carry on with your thought, please.
Yep. So it would halve the time of building maybe, and therefore give you some sort of advantage time-wise against your opposition.
Lex, your thoughts? You may speak now.
I had to remember to unmute my mic. With alliances for PvP, basically what you're doing is you're creating teams. Not a bad thing. I'm not saying this as a bad idea, because teams are a good thing in PvP. You could do stuff like territory control. You could do creating outposts or creating keeps and then assaulting them. You could just go to straight out open field warfare. You could even go as far as to say, when I'm at war with a certain alliance, my damage to them and their damage to me is increased, or the damage reduced, whichever. That means that if you were PvPing in an open area and you see someone from that rival alliance, you're probably more likely to take them on or trying to jump them than taking this lonely guy out on his own, because you get some kind of bonus against them. Now, they do against you as well, but it's still just a matter of advantage at that point. You would have a greater advantage over just someone else. So it's a great tool for directing PvP combat in that fashion. Again, you'd really have to watch how big your alliances can get, because eventually you're going to get that one alliance that will just walk across the entire map and steamroll everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, want to make them limited so that there is more competition out there. There's no way around it. There has to be competition, but there also has to be a very good reward for an alliance war. So when you're balancing your reward for an alliance, which is typically a very large group of people, you got to be very particular and make sure that doesn't become exponentially great, because then what could be just a minor flaw in terms of a few people could be gigantic.
They could even go about and say, look, you got like this massive guild on the PvP server that has 1,000+ members. Now, they can't form an alliance, but you might get an event happening where go out and form alliances, reach a number of 1,000+ people in that alliance, and try and take down this huge, massive guild. Those are stipulations that they could add in as little twists and fun things to do as well. Where you have this huge, massive PvP guild out there having to fend for their lives, getting attacked from 3 or 5 different guilds that have formed an alliance to take them down. Stuff like that could be implemented. There has to definitely be limitations on how many guilds can form an alliance, what the cap number is going to be, and there should also definitely be penalties. Let's say, for instance, now you've got this alliance with 1,000+ people attacking the smaller alliances. Now they should be penalised for that. If they're attacking an alliance that is maybe only 100 strong and they've got like 900 going on them, then they have to be penalised for that. There has to be punishment as well, because that's not fair. It's just not a nice thing to do.
Yeah, penalties are always a dangerous word to throw around, especially in PvP. Instead, what I would probably say is give a very large bonus to the person who is on the lower end of this, or the short end of the stick, so that smaller good. If they manage to kill a couple of that giant alliance's people, then heck, good on them. Make them feel like they accomplished something huge. But honestly, they did.
Mm-hmm. They could even... I don't know if they're going to limit certain accesses to certain NPCs and stuff like that, depending on if you're we don't know if the alignment's going to be good and evil when it comes to PvP, only having good guilds or evil guilds. We don't know that. If that is something like that would be a rule set, having the possibility to form an alliance between a good and evil guild could open up different possibilities as well. Things that we were talking about on the PvP aspect would definitely come into effect and work brilliantly on the PvP side by accessing events that technically weren't there before for the evil PvP guild, or vice versa for the good PvP guild, because they formed an alliance. You could even go ahead and say, look, if a guild, or if 2 guilds of opposite alignment form an alliance, that's it, it's done. There's a maximum of 2 guilds only. That kind of balances out the accessibility and keeps a level balance where you have like 3 evil guilds putting together, 3 good guilds put together, and then you've got these 2 other guilds forming an alliance from opposite alignment that generally have different accessibility, but they're limited because it's only those 2 that have this alliance, and they could end up being free for all.
Right.
Adding another stipulation.
I would be very careful about that, only because in a PvP scenario, instead of using alliances, and I'll just use like a paladin and a dire lord, they could team up. If the situation was dire, they would team up. When it's over, they'd part ways, obviously. And almost the same thing could be said about alliances and guilds. Just because they're opposite alignments doesn't necessarily mean they should be penalized, because if one really is super, super evil and one is really super, super good, then in some aspect of their gameplay, they're going to clash and they're going to have issues. It's just going to be a little more difficult than, say, two guilds in an alliance that are always going to go the tree hugger route, you know?
Nothing wrong with hugging a tree.
What I was thinking as well is that you would have an optimum number, be it 100 people, and once you hit that optimal level at least, and you start going over that, you start getting fatigue with too many people in the guild. So therefore, you'd start seeing certain negative penalties coming into the alliance if you have more people than that, or if you aren't at that level as well. So you try and strike some sort of a balance as to what is the optimum size of this alliance between guilds or your guild itself.
You gave me another good idea as well, real quick. Quickly, so you can bounce off of Josh's idea in a minute. Coming back to the PvE. What about having an alliance as well affect the economy for us? So when it comes to trade goods, because we've formed an alliance, you know, we talked about this already in some kind of form, having access to certain bits and bobs. But if we have an alliance and, you know, their guild leader is of the Wild's End race, and our guild leader is of the Throne Fast area, you know, we get discounts for trade goods.
Exactly that.
Huh?
Josh said exactly that.
Yep. So I did not hear it earlier on because of all the background and everything. Because obviously I'm really stressed today because my system has blown up.
Hey, I'm amazed that I actually remembered what somebody said.
Yep. But, you know, stuff like that is definitely where I see the benefits reeking for forming a club of guilds. We'll call it the club. We're gonna go clubbing. It's a benefit.
Yeah, it's a benefit to having diverse backgrounds, and it would make sense. I mean, a halfling knows possibly where to buy the best iron in Wild's End. You could tell, like, you know,
or
theoretically, an alliance, where I'm going to Wild's End, where do I go to buy iron? Oh, you go over to this shop, not that shop. Oh, okay, thank you. You just saved your money. So that's kind of the quote-unquote real-world justification for that discount. But
you can even, you know, add certain accessibility as well, based on the alignment from where the guild is formed. So be it Throne Fast, from Cyrenai's End, and so what. So depending on where the guild is formed, technically we wouldn't have access to that area, or our faction would be in ruin normally, or we would have to build up our faction. You might get a faction boost that gives you better access or quicker access to that region, or to that zone, or to that land, to that continent and whatnot.
Yep.
So those are also benefits that could reek in as well. So you kind of,
definitely,
you know, this is why I said, you know, adding faction and stuff like this into the mix, and depending on where the guild is from, be it, you know, from Throne Fast, Wild's End, from the Ogre, etc. Having these alliances be formed give you maybe little boosts in faction. Maybe they give you beneficial faction towards the acclamation of that area.
Yeah.
As well.
Definitely.
Those are little tidbits that they could add in that would not generally interfere with the core mechanics of the game. You're not really getting any real bonuses. It would be minor. It would be minor bonuses that you would get, that effectively give you a little bit of a boost towards the normal way you would go and approach it. Now, that's a reason why you would want to go and form a alliance in the first place, because you might reap some small benefits.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, there's got to be benefits regardless. There's got to be benefits that would fit almost every aspect of gameplay. Otherwise, run the risk of crafters not wanting to do it or players not wanting to do it. It's another one of these things where I'm glad I'm not designing it. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I like the economy idea. I like it helping acclimation to a point. Because, I mean, heck, if it was a dwarf, he could tell you how to stay warm. You know? Economy one kind of sticks with me the most right now because I see stuff like acclimation as being my own personal challenge. The economy, kind of like gameplay for all, in a way. I almost want an alliance which is more concerned about group, or at least to me shouts group. Give benefits that would help a large number of people versus just help a few. If that makes any sense, because I think I kind of lost track.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things they could do with it. There's so many ways they could possibly go, and it's obviously, if this is something that they definitely want to pursue, they need to take their time with it. And, you know, once they've got everything else sorted out, the game, the balancing, everything else is done and dusted, and they want to, you know, think of ways to add a bit more immersion, a bit more in-depth storytelling to the game, and give us more options and more things to do. Then they can go and look at systems like the Guild Alliance and maybe possible ways to even add in guild warfare in the PvP aspect to some PvE aspect to some point, if that's something they want to pursue. But it's obviously something that doesn't necessarily hold a higher value. The only things that I value most is being able to see all the alts that are online from Josh's character when he's online. If he's not necessarily in my guild with his twink, because we have limitations, maybe we say only one alt per and one main in our guild to keep it nice and tidy. But what about his other alts? I still want to be able to communicate with him without having to go through the hassle of writing down all his characters, adding them to my friends list, doing that. What happens if he's not there for some unknown reason, and I need to get a hold of him? You know, he might not come on. He might forget to come onto Discord. He might forget this. He might forget that.
I do definitely see the alliances becoming a very valuable organizational tool for larger guilds. I mean, absolutely. No reason for them not to be.
Yep.
Especially if it's going to be a lot of cross communication. Honestly, be silly not to take advantage of that. But if there is a cap on the number of guilds that can be in an alliance, and I say guilds over players because if you get to that player cap, basically you're denying your fellow guilds room to grow, right? And you want them to grow. You want your allies to grow. You want them to be stronger because they want you to be stronger. You know, fair is fair. So if we cap it at a number of guilds, we're going to run into a lot less issues. I think it's just a safe way to go about it.
What is the penalties for leaving an alliance?
Can't
Because
join another
jumping
alliance
backwards
for
and forwards.
48 hours.
Yeah, you could put a time sink in it. You could say, you know, you formed an alliance between such part. You could even, just for the sake of it now, this is going a bit overboard now, just for the sake of it, let's say there's a contract that's been aligned. Now let's say you can have 30-day contracts, you can have 90-day contracts, you can have half a year contracts, and you can have a year contract. Now, depending on what kind of contract you do, you add different stipulations for when they get out. So let's say, for instance, now we've agreed, we three have guilds, we form a contract, and we agree to a 1-year alliance. Now, 3 months down the road, for whatever reason, Josh wants to get out of the alliance. Now, he might have to pay a compensation. He might have a limitation on forming another alliance for X amount of weeks or days or whatever before he can even go and do that. He could have maybe lockouts on certain things that he technically unlocked. So there's definitely ways to do that, to add possible outcomes. You could even go as well and say, look, the 30 days you can have so and so many fluff items, but if you go and form a year and you actually work towards that year, you get this fluff item, which is absolutely awesome and amazing. Lexa gets a flower aura around his whole entire body for actually lasting a year with these two other guilds. He's just messing around. But those are things that they could put in. They could add different rewards, benefits to depending on what kind of contract we go under. This is obviously, out of this world. Definitely something that is not needed, but that is something that they could do. They could add time towards being in an alliance.
Yeah, it's hard to think of what kind of, I'm going to say the dreaded word, penalty for leaving.
Mm-hmm.
They're really, I don't see there being a reason to penalize anyone for leaving. I could see penalize them for being kicked out.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you really want to avoid that penalized word.
Yeah.
Now, there's another question though.
Away aspect of it.
This is another question though. How would you? Now, this is just for the sake of argument. How would you decide who's going to get kicked out and why? We three have guilds. We form an alliance. We come together. We're 3 guild leaders. We form this alliance. Boom, we want to do this. You work out whatever. You have pre-choices that basically make us look towards joining together. Like they have when you form your guild, you can put down we're casual, we're friendly, we're looking to raid, we're doing this. So basically, based on certain options, we 3 pick each other. Now, who's going to decide, or who's going to have the right to kick Josh's guild out? I might want him to stay in. You might want him to go out.
Whoever the alliance leader is, or is it a vote system? I mean, again, these are more things that we just don't really know.
Exactly. Change of power within a different guild.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're an alliance and all of a sudden the guild leadership changes, your satellite guilds, I guess you're going to call them, maybe. Probably not the right word. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me. But, how is that going to be handled?
Yep.
Is the old leader going to be vindictive, dropped from the alliance? Things leader? I mean, you could argue that even in a regular guild, the guild leader could be dethroned and be very vindictive about it and disband, like that. And there's no difference with an alliance.
Yeah, penalization.
Yeah.
Somebody in Josh's guild's been bad.
Dirty.
Somebody in Josh's guild's been bad. Josh sends him over to us, and we give them all 20 lashes.
Honestly, if
Messing about now.
PR is going to hold true to an alliance, meaning we're all together in this, we're all equals, then the functionality of how things are done has to reflect that. I mean, if someone applies, if there is an apply method to get in, then people in the alliance currently have to vote yay or nay. If someone's going to get kicked out of the alliance, they have to vote yay or nay. Voting systems are not super complicated to do, but they do take time. Whereas if you're just going to do kind of dictatorship, rulership of how a guild usually works towards an alliance, that might not work so well, but it also might work pretty well. You just don't know. It depends on who's running it.
But it also depends as to the goals you set out between each other at the start of it. So if somebody is bringing in raid skills, but they're not holding up their side of the bargain after a month or so, then that's a kickable offense type of thing. Or it has to be set up at the beginning.
I saw what Zaffis just said there. Junior guilds, Remora guild. You could basically have a ranking structure as well. You could even have, you can add achievements, for instance. This is just fluff now. We're just talking about fluff as well. You can add achievements, form 3 alliances. Boom. You get an achievement. Or you get a rank up. you've now got a higher rank when you form an alliance over the other two guilds that come in. You have a slightly more higher rank than them. You know, your experience, basically, your experience within the alliance system is recognizable because of the ranking structure they might put in.
See, I like the idea of a voting system for alliance. Basically, guild leaders in an alliance. I like the idea of having junior and senior allies. But here's why. I mean, here we have 5 guilds. You could assign a weight to their vote. Your guilds get 3. Your guilds get 6. And now all of a sudden, while the junior guilds can still vote on something, say to kick Joshua's guild from the alliance, he's obviously going to say no, and he's a senior guild.
What's with all the hatred towards Josh, dude? He's done nothing wrong,
today.
man.
Because he left me alone for so long. So lonely. But you know, and this way you have a brand new guild. It's a junior guild. It technically doesn't really have the right to have a lot of weight in this vote, because they don't know Josh. They don't know what circumstances led to this event, but they get a vote because they are a member of Alliance. Therefore, they get a say, just not a whole bunch. Now, having less power behind your vote does not mean that it doesn't mean anything. It's just that if the circumstances are close, but this kind of gives you room to do serious voting, while still recruiting people into your alliance without having to worry about, oh, we have to take care of this issue first, and then we can recruit these guys. But he's not going to be on tomorrow or this week or next week. You know, it just makes things a little easier while making things harder on the devs.
Now what about adding maybe special access to the guild halls as well through the alliance system?
Senior alliance member to get into my bedchambers. I mean, in my guild hall.
What about stuff like that, just as fluff? You know,
it is complete fluff.
You technically form an alliance. You've gone through the year. You've basically kept a good score with your alliance. You know, you've worked through all the good and bad. You've kept it all balanced working. You're rewarded a global guild hall for that alliance.
Well, if it's an alliance, if it's a guild hall that everybody shares, being a part of the alliance, just because you're new doesn't necessarily mean you should be restricted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like saying I just joined this company, but I can't get in the front door till next week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but I could definitely see saying like you can't get into our treasury room or our banking room or whatever. You know, something that would a certain amount of trust. I could see you locking that away from junior members, absolutely. Because they're new, they should have access to a few things. But you don't trust them 100% just yet. But when they get your trust, you can actually reward them with something, be it access to a bank side that has like all of our shared loots.
I'll just give you a bit of advice now for future reference, Lex. When you're in the game with us, and you're with Josh and me, and we happen to be in Amber Fate, somewhere up top, and you stand next to the cliff, always watch your back, dude.
I believe I can fly.
I'm sure Josh will push you down that cliff.
Oh, trust me, I plan on actually doing a recording, and I'm going to get Josh there, and he's going to like just nudge his character forward and be like, oh my god!
Anyway, let's go and get Frogs into this, because we rambled on for about a good hour. Technically nonsense, because, you know, hey, that's what we do best. Anyway,
and you do it so well.
A bit of a Pantheon theme.
So you got any questions, thoughts, ideas from
No.
chat? No? Wow.
Nothing.
No, You guys have answered everything that's come up, so
Record.
you guys gave me nothing to do except listen to Lex talk about his
think of
mention.
something else to ask us. I mean,
Right.
You guys answered everything, so I mean, you gave me nothing to do.
So
Even Cricket says she has nothing to do.
one thing we missed at the beginning of the show, because obviously I was completely stressed with all the crap that was going on with my system. Disclaimer. So I'll do the verbal disclaimer right now. We, the Voice of Terminus show, are not paid by the devs. We do not work for VR. We are not devs. Technically, Lexa is to some point, but he's not a dev for VR. We're doing this out of passion for the game, in support of VR and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, to help spread the word about the game, to entertain everybody out there, to talk about all the systems that they would like to put in play or possibly put into the game. Think of ideas to strengthen what they've already discussed, and think of possible ways to add additions to their features, give it more immersion, or even to help the devs come up with that little nudge that they're missing to finalize the thought. That's what we do with you guys out there in chat, and the community in general, with the forums and everything. And yeah, that's what we're here for, to entertain everybody and to help support the game. And I'm going to bring up the calendar, because next week is our Open AMA, AUA, which is basically Ask Me Anything, Ask Us Anything chat, where you can ask anything on Pantheon, anything on any one of these individuals here on the show. If you want to ask any personal questions, anything about the show itself, or about the Voice of Terminus in general. Next week we're going to sit here and answer all your questions, and we'll see where that goes, because it will be our first AMA, AUA that we're doing. Obviously, we have no idea how this is going to work, because chat doesn't technically catch up so fast. So we might have a few delays.
Sometimes we're on like a 30-minute delay or
But
30-second delay.
if you want to help us out with next week's show, and you happen to be on our Discord server, or my email address is Janila. I'll even write it in chat right now. If you want to give us a heads up, maybe give us a start of some questions you want to ask us in general. It can be related to Pantheon, it can be related to us, related to the show, whatever. Send your questions to that email address, so when we start the show, we can already start answering questions and pick up your questions while we're doing or waiting and doing the show with you. So yeah, that will be next week, and then after that we'll do the crafting discussion. I'll give you a little hint what we're going to talk about. Perception and crafting. Because it's already been said on the forums, and the official forums from Pantheon, they're thinking of ways to add the perception system into crafting as well. So we're going to definitely talk about that next week, or a week after that, sorry, and see where that takes us.
Also, if you want to
week
tease
is
the people
all
a
about
little
feeling.
bit on the project I'm working on, you can just tell them how great it is.
Alright then, let's go and talk about Lex's project. So
We don't
Lex...
have to tease the details. Don't want to give them the details. You just tease them. Tease them a
Alright,
little bit.
alright then. Guys,
Foreplay.
right, I want you to go and send an email. I'll tease them right now. To this email address.
Running. Oh my god, hold on.
To this email address, and just write in that email classes space races Pantheon. Go for it.
No.
Yeah, you
have to
can.
actually ask if there's playable class. What playable classes?
You don't have to though.
There's two keywords.
Two keywords are the two keywords are classes and races. Go and ask. Right, okay, let's do it different. Just write a question into that email. What races and classes are playable in Pantheon? And send that email off. This is something that Lex is really excited about. Something I'm personally excited about as well. When he told me about this, what he's doing there, it's pretty cool. So give that a shot. And next Thursday, We'll let Lex talk a bit about more because he's been dying to tell everybody about it.
Oh my god.
And I've like said no, not yet.
It sucks. You need to stop doing it.
So give that a shot. Ask what classes and races are available, or ask what else can they ask?
Ask them to tell you a dwarf joke.
Yep, tell me a dwarf joke.
Say, tell me a dwarf joke.
Yep.
You can ask it when the release date is for Pantheon.
Exactly.
But basically what this is, an automated system, and it's not going to be just emails. I know, I said I wasn't going to just tease us.
Yeah.
Like, go for it, Lex. Spill the beans. Spill the beans now. You might as well.
It's going to be an automated question and answer system where we're working on adding as much information as we can about Pantheon. We're going to keep it up to date as much as we can. Again, this is something that I really have no time for another project, but I figured, what the heck? Like I said, it's also a work in progress. There are still bugs with the system. There's not a whole lot of questions that it can answer, but eventually you're going to see this through emails. You're probably going to see this in our Twitch chat. You're probably even going to see this on our website and maybe even in our Discord server. So fingers crossed that everything works out well. So far, it's been coming along relatively smooth.
Yep, it's going to be
some of our guildmates.
a advanced questions and answer system where everybody can profit from.
Yeah.
And we mean
I'm also
everybody.
going to make it publicly available through a web API. So anyone can just link it into their website if they want.
Yep. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this chaotic show today. Obviously, as you could tell through the discussion, we did not prepare whatsoever, apart from what Chris Perkins had to say about the matter. But that's what we do. That's what we do. You know, we give it a little bit of thought, and then we just, run our mouths for about an hour and see what we come up with. And I think we're doing pretty damn good. And with that, guys, thanks for joining us. We will see you all next Thursday for the AMA AUA, where you can ask us anything.
Lexel, share his feelings.
And, yeah. Maybe Lexo will talk a bit more about his
Hatred for half.
hatred for halflings.
I spilled the beans. I'm good.
Right, he's happy now. He spilt the beans to everybody.
I need a towel and cigarette now.
That's an insider as well. Actually, we have to add that to the FAQ. What is it with the towel and the cigarette? And we have to think of a really cool answer for that. Anyway, with that, guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for putting up with the BS today as well. There was a lot of it.
Thanks for sticking around and dealing with the chaotic.
And if you're on Twitter, hashtag #WeLoveJosh. Send a tweet out because this poor guy got slaughtered today. And Lexa just wanted to go and kick his butt and throw him out of the alliance and push him off a cliff. Alright, so with that, guys, take care. Good night.
Safe, people.
Cheers, guys.
Good night.
We'll be right back.